One of the casualties of Bush-era emasculation of government enforcement has been fair wages. Here in Washington on November 12th, a group called Interfaith Worker Justice held a press conference at the Department of Labor and alleged that workers are losing billions of dollars in wages due them because of illegal practices by employers. The executive director of Interfaith Worker Justice, Kim Bobo, has written a book about it called Wage Theft in America: Why Millions of Working Americans Are Not Getting Paid and What We Can Do About It. We spoke to her at the Campaign for America's Future offices.
Wage theft is when employers steal wages from workers. Now, they do this in lots of different ways. 2 to 3 million workers aren't paid the minimum wage, even though they legally are supposed to. 3 million workers are misclassified as independent contractors, even though they're really employees. Several million, or many million, no one quite knows how many workers, aren't paid overtime, even though they should. Then we have employers that shave wages, right, or shave hours. So they go into the timesheets and they say, oh, well, they only work 40 hours, which in fact they work 42 or 43. That's shaving hours. Or sometimes you have employers that steal tips from restaurant workers. All of that is wage theft.
Now, a lot of that doesn't even sound legal.
Well, it's not. None of that is legal. It's all flat out illegal, and yet it's a crime wave that people don't know about.
Now, how do businesses get away with it?
Well, the problem right now is we really don't have enough forces trying to stop wage theft. Now, if you think about what are the options for stopping wage theft, one is strong unions. Well, unions are not nearly as strong as they have been in past years, and so unions aren't out there stopping wage theft. Second pushback force is ethical business leaders who are standing up against wage theft. We're not seeing that at all. There are ethical business leaders, but they're not working on wage theft. Third option is a strong Department of Labor. And I have to tell you, they're falling down on the job in terms of fighting wage theft. And frankly, no matter how hard individual investigators at the Department of Labor try to do their job, they're just overwhelmed with the problems, and they don't have the resources. We're seeing, you know how we saw the deregulation of the banking industry that frankly led to the crisis that we have. We have the same problem in terms of regulating the workforce. When there are only 750 investigators for the entire country, they can't possibly do the job.
And how has, I'm sure there have been members of Congress as well as people like you who have asked for more resources to be devoted to addressing that issue. What's been the response from the Labor Department?
Well, at this point, the leadership is not asking for more resources. In fact, the Wage and Hour Administrator testified that they were just doing a great job. Well, they're on an individual level doing a great job working hard, but in terms of stopping wage theft, they're doing a horrible job. And the Department of Labor in recent years has not in itself been advocating for more resources. And so I think one of the things that's such an opportunity right now with the new administration is to have leadership that can be asking for more staff, for more enforcement staff, more lawyers to back them up. And then we'll figure out how to partner creatively with the 130 worker centers that are around the country that really are doing this job that the Department of Labor ought to be doing in terms of fighting employers that are stealing wages, that can be partnering with labor unions who want to work on this, that can partner with private attorneys that are doing wage and hour cases. You know, we just need a whole new rethinking of the Department of Labor.
And the cost nationally to workers as a result of all of this theft is what?
Billions and billions of dollars. On just the overtime issue alone, the Economic Policy Institute, which was a business kind of think tank, they estimated $19 billion in stolen overtime wages. And most attorneys that I talk to who handle overtime cases, they say that's a very conservative figure. So if you figure probably $10 billion for minimum wage violations, $19 billion there, probably another $15, $20 billion in terms of misclassification, it's billions of dollars being stolen from millions of workers. It is an epidemic. It's a crisis in the nation.
And your book, I understand, has stories about individual workers. Share with me one of those.
one of the stories that to me is just the saddest is there's a group of car wash workers in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're men from a homeless shelter, right, trying to make it. And so this car wash employed all these guys from a homeless shelter. When a car would go through the car wash, they would clock the workers in. And when the car came out of the car wash, they would clock them out. And so they would be at the car wash for 12 to 14 hours a day and only paid for 6 or 7 hours a day. Now, you know, we want people to work hard. We want people to get themselves out of homeless shelters or whatever. How could they possibly do that if they're only being paid for 6 or 7 hours of the day when they're there 12 to 14 hours? That's a scandal. Absolutely scandal.
And would be, under the law, would be illegal.
It's absolutely illegal. Absolutely illegal. And luckily, there's a new workers' center that's affiliated with Interfaith Worker Justice that is fighting that and is helping those workers. But we need a Department of Labor. We can't be relying on worker centers around the country.
So what would you expect a new administration and a new Congress to do?
Well, number one, I think we're going to have some leadership that is going to make this a priority. And I think they need to be out speaking with the broad public about wage theft and put it in the context of the national crisis that indeed it is. Secondly, there's a number of things they can do immediately in terms of making information available to groups, thinking about how you do campaigns in a coordinated way. But very quickly, they've got to fight for more resources. And that clearly is a decision of Congress to allocate more money for them to get more enforcement staff. Now, with more enforcement staff, we then think they should be targeting half of their resources to what's called targeted investigations. Now, right now, what they do is most of the resources are investigators sit at their desk, answer the phone, somebody calls with a complaint, and then they try to call the employer and get them to settle over the phone. Well, that's not adequate. What you need to do is you need to say, oh, we know there's a huge problem in the meatpacking industry. So we're going to send our investigators into the meatpacking industry, look at the wage records, and if people aren't getting paid, we're going to get wages back for all of those workers, right? To do it in a collective kind of fashion. We believe, Interfaith Worker Justice believes, that half of the resources ought to be devoted to targeted investigations. That is impossible without more resources. But with more resources, that's the direction we need to go.
It occurs to me as I'm listening to you talk that we're in the middle of this economic crisis where unemployment is going to go up. And Congress is right now thinking of ways to get money into the hands of workers so that they can have that money to spend. It sounds like one of the things that perhaps is part of the economic bailout package, if not part of the bailout package, maybe along with it, would be this kind of enforcement effort that you thought of in a context?
Absolutely. I've thought a lot about what better economic stimulus for the economy than having workers paid the wages they're owed, right? That goes directly to workers and directly to communities. We also believe that if you invest in those enforcement staff, you're going to get back that money relatively quickly, both in terms of the monies for the workers and the monies that are owed to the public coffers when workers are misclassified. So yes, we believe it's a good investment to do for this struggling economy. Now, one other issue that was just raised to me is the importance of, right now, we're probably going to see a lot of public contracts, right? As part of the effort to stimulate the economy, get people back to work, we're going to see public contracts. Well, every time we've seen public contracts in recent years, we've seen problems with workers at the bottom end of the chain not getting paid. So when we had Katrina, we had the cleanup, the workers who actually were doing the work that came back to government contracts, there was wage theft there. So with all these public contracts, we have an opportunity to stop wage theft as well.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time.
Great. You want to know how you can get the book?
Absolutely.
From IWJ, www.iwj.org. People can get the book, and soon it will be in your bookstores.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.